Thanks for being here. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the third scheduled meeting to discuss the potential transfer of the Stillwell Fields cleared area to the school district. We've been conducting a series of public meetings. We've been trying to publicize on social media, our website, and in a day or two, you'll be getting a mailer from the school district in your mailbox, and is trying to put out as much information as we possibly can. We've been collecting questions from residents throughout the course of this process, and as those questions come in, we update our frequently asked questions document. That's a living document that just keeps evolving on the website as the questions come in, and then we refer questioners back to that document so that everyone has the same answers to the same questions at the same time. So with that said, if you've been to one of these meetings before, you'll know that we'll start with a presentation, but this is for those who haven't been to a meeting yet. I'll go through the highlights and the main points of what's going on. Then we'll take some questions. I'll just lay down some ground rules so that everybody gets to participate, and we'll try to respond where we can. And then just to be clear about what this is an administrative hearing. This is not a meeting of the Board of Education, although there are members of the board who are present. Obviously, they want to hear the opinions of the public as well. And so we'll be running this so that we can take public feedback on this proposal. And then the proposal itself will be up for a vote on May 18th. So with that said, I'll just take us through some of the highlights of the presentation. So this opportunity came to the school district. We regarded it as an opportunity to provide students with an enhanced recreational asset. Obviously, anything that the school district owns, the community owns, and the community gets to take advantage of when the school district's not using it. So our current facilities are used nights and weekends by members of the community. This would be as well. And we recognize that the kids that are using the property are precious. They are members of this community, and we work very hard to keep them safe here in school. We're fortunate to have a couple of our POP officers with us this evening. We work very closely with them to keep our kids safe in school, and this represented an opportunity to keep them safe outside of the school as well. So the main points of the proposal are the 35 or so acres of cleared land that's on the west side of the Stillwell Preserve would transfer from Nassau County to the school district. The remaining portion of the preserve, all of the wooded area, all of the trails, the polo grounds, everything to the east of the baseball fields essentially, would remain Nassau County's, and its preserve status would be unchanged. So the county, when we were negotiating with them, put a series of constraints on requirements that would attach to the property. And some of those conditions were that any community group that had an existing permit for use of the property, that permit would have to transfer with it. The property would have to remain as a recreational facility, and $3 million that the county had already pledged for improvements to the property would go along with the property during the sale. The price of the property itself is just $1. It's a nominal an amount just to signify the transfer from one entity to another. And then henceforth, this would be school district property, and so the school district would manage it in the same way that we manage the 100 acres or so of property that we're sitting in on right now. So we'll talk about the athletic possibilities on the property in a second, but we also envisioned the potential for some educational opportunities there as well, certainly taking advantage of the proximity of the preserve to do some installations that would allow us to do environmental education, some ecosystem research. the school district, for those who have been here for a long time, know that the school district used to do in-district field trips. Elementary kids would go to the high school, and there was a rich environmental education program that they would take advantage of. That has kind of eroded away, and I think as we come out of the pandemic, there's an opportunity for us to rethink outdoor spaces, outdoor education, and how we have our kids appreciate the outdoor world. We did talk about creating a space where there would be a performance area, a lawn, and a concrete pad so that a mobile stage could be put on there. If you're familiar with the high school, they do an annual event they call the Bardathon, and think of it as sort of a Shakespeare in the Park meets, meets what? Meets kids having a lot of fun, and kind of a little bit of silliness. I was trying to think of a good metaphor for silliness, and I just couldn't come up with one. Health and wellness programs, and then lastly, we were inspired by some work that was done at Letchworth State Park by one of the local school districts there that's south of Rochester, and they created what they call an autism trail. I think we would probably do something a little broader and call it a sensory walk, but a way of making the outdoor world accessible to some kids who might perceive it differently than others, and that I think that's a rich opportunity to potentially take advantage of as well. On the athletic side, the addition of synthetic turf fields, some lighting, and some walking paths, I think it's actually easier to understand that when we get to the drawing of what it looks like. And some additional amenities, which would be enhanced safety and security, surveillance cameras, some low-level lighting, perimeter walking and running path. So one of the things that we noticed during the shutdown from the pandemic is that the track here was being used during the day frequently by senior citizen members of our community. And when we reopened school in September, we had to close the track during the school day. We had definitely some disappointed people. This provides an opportunity for walking path that would be on school grounds but would not be closed during the school day the way the track has to be. Certainly we understand that the property needs improvement in terms of parking and some of the roadways that are on there, renovation of the existing restroom facility, which is, it's not in poor shape, but the plumbing that it's attached to is really under capacity for the number of stalls that are there and needs to be upgraded. And the potential for additional comfort stations closer to baseball so that it's not necessary to go quite so far across the park in order to access the back bathrooms. Then lastly, a small playground for young children, understanding that older siblings who might be playing would have younger siblings that need to be entertained. And then obviously just some opportunities to beautify the park. So this is a view from the south. And on the left would be Southwoods Road, and on the right is the border of the perimeter where the wooded area would begin. And I find it's just sort of easier to kind of sweep from left to right and talk about the various features that are here. So on the left, there's the parking lot that is there right now. It needs some resurfacing. But importantly, the traffic that congests the park when people are trying to get in and out, and my understanding is that it often delays people for significant amounts of time. A lot of that attaches to the fact that there's entrance and exit at the south part of Southwoods Road. So in speaking with the architects and engineers, and they have a traffic engineer on staff, if that was turned into an entrance only, you would eliminate people attempting to make left turns out of Stillwell while people were attempting to make left turns into Stillwell from Southwoods Road. That's where a lot of the congestion comes from. And then that congestion backs up in both directions on Southwoods Road and then also backs up into the park. Instead, if the entrance that is closer to the bathroom and fire department station was exit only, the north side, and the south side was entrance only, you'd create a much better circulation, a much better flow. And the north entrance is 2 lanes wide, so you'd have a left turn bay and a right turn bay so that right turning cars wouldn't be held up by left turning cars. And hopefully that would make it easier to get in and out of the park and create less congestion. Moving to the right of that parking lot, in the center of the property are turf fields, synthetic turf fields, with lighting. The idea behind locating these in the center of the property would be to minimize the amount of light that spills over out of the park. And because these would be new lights, the new technology is both focused, so there's not as much light scatter, and low energy. It's light emitting diode LED lights, so they're less energy intensive. Down the middle is sort of a white T that represents concrete. And what this would be is a path to get into the fields, and as a concrete path, it would make it a lot easier for a mobility challenged individual to be able to get to these fields. So we're imagining this could be make it easier for someone who was maybe older or needed the use of a wheelchair, or even a parent who is pushing a stroller, make it easier to get into the park. And then while at one of these fields, it would provide a stable place to set up a folding chair or something like that. In the upper left-hand corner, there are existing grass fields. They would be reoriented, smoothed, and additional grass would be put into place to try and improve them. They're uneven right now, and so this would be an attempt to make those better surfaces to play on. As you sweep your eye around the perimeter, you can see that there is a brown ribbon. That brown ribbon we envision as the walking running path that I described earlier. It works out to be it works out to be exactly a mile. And if you're a runner like me, you know that that's a nice distance because you can time yourself more easily. But it's also 4 laps around the track here, and we were seeing the people who are taking advantage of it for walking doing many more than just 4 laps. So moving to the right side of the property, the existing baseball and softball fields, the infield surfaces would be replaced with synthetic turf. And in speaking to some parents who have used this for years, the challenges of getting some drainage and the playing surface to be playable after a rainstorm has been a challenge. The synthetic turf would solve that challenge and make these surfaces playable at all times. To the lower right-hand corner, you see a large triangular parking lot. This will certainly add a number of parking spaces and hopefully alleviate some of the parking congestion that occurs along the south part of the property. I went there on a weekend while there was a soccer tournament and 3 Little League games all going at the same time, and saw that it was very congested. And because there were so many improvised parking spots, there were places where the roadway would essentially choke down to a single lane, and then it would make it very hard for people to get by one another in order to exit the property. So in speaking with the architects, they just suggested eliminating the wide spots and narrow spots and just having all of the parking head-in parking so that it works the same way at every part of the property. A couple other things to draw attention to. Between the 2 large baseball fields, there's a space, and our thought was to put a concrete pad there that would support a mobile comfort station. They're using these comfort stations at like the FEMA installations where the vaccination is taking place. They're much nicer than porta potties. Think like an RV that is used exclusively for bathroom facilities. And that would be something that the district would not have to manage in the winter months when it wasn't used, but at all other times of the year, it would provide someone with a ready comfort facility so that it wouldn't be necessary to run all the way across the property to take advantage of the bathrooms. And again, specifically thinking of older members of our community who might be there watching their children play, their grandchildren play, would make it a little bit easier. And as I mentioned before, a lawn space on the bottom with a concrete pad that would be there to support a small stage for small performances. And to the left of that, The tan area is the playground with 2 small pieces of equipment, and we're picturing these as sort of early elementary appropriate aged equipment. So all of this would be accomplished within the $10.5 million that the district has been talking about spending on the property. This is all on the website. I won't go into it in tremendous detail. I will just linger on the very last line on here for 1 second, the contingency line. There's a fairly large contingency built into this, and that's simply because unlike school district properties where we're quite familiar with the property, this is a property that we have less familiarity with, and so we want to leave a little bit of flexibility. And as we learn more about the property, that flexibility may be something that can be repurposed as scope of work when we realize that it might not be needed for something that was unanticipated. The annual maintenance costs, we put in a conservative estimate. By conservative, that means we were trying to see what worst case scenario cost would be. We think that it's unlikely that it would be cost effective to do the turf field maintenance, to outsource it. It would be much more cost effective to do that in-house. We currently have 1 turf field, but if the district had several turf fields, it would clearly be much more cost effective to do that in-house. Syosset Soccer has given us an unrestricted pledge of support to underwrite some of the annual costs, and we'll see some savings as an offset by not busing kids to places like Cantiague Park or Syosset Woodbury Park, where they go now when we have conflicts and overflow needs. So the cost of the construction would be underwritten by, as I mentioned earlier, the $3 million that comes from the county. The district has received 2 gifts of $1 million, 1 pledged, 1 given from 2 developers, and the remaining funds would be raised through bonded indebtedness, which is how the district typically does it, for a total investment of $10.5 million. The debt service on the bonds works out to, and this is just to give a sense of scale, about $23 for every $100,000 paid in taxes. So if someone had a $20,000 tax bill, that amounts to about $46. The district is rolling off some debt. The amount that's being rolled off is about twice what this annual cost would be. So the net will not be a change in the levy driven by this. And then these are some of the questions that are on the FAQ document. I want to just, I won't read all of these to you. They're available online. But I do want to talk through some of the questions that we've gotten with some frequency and try to explain how they'll work. One thing that's come up a number of times is who has usage rights to the property. And I think the easiest way to think about this would be as a series of hierarchies. So the first priority would be to the school district. It's school district property, so school district uses would come first. The second priority would be all of the existing use permits. So anyone that has a usage permit for the property now, that usage permit would convey with the property and it would be honored. The good news is right now I don't anticipate a lot of conflicts between those 2 uses because we have slightly different times of day. So I don't see that being a challenge. The third and final would be for any time that isn't already spoken for, then a group could apply for a usage permit through the school district in the same way that that's done now. So the district has a policy called community use of facilities. You apply to have a permit to use the district facility. Like if you wanted to have a permit to use the Southwoods gym, you would apply for that permit. But to get a permit, you have to meet all of the criteria that are in the community use of facilities policy, some of which is you have to be an organization because you have to have your own liability insurance. So if someone were to say to us, I want to have the gym for my kid's 16th birthday party, we would say no, because that's not a use that's consistent with the community use of facilities policy. But if Syosset Basketball wanted to use the gym and would name us as an additional insured on their insurance policy, then that is a permissible use. We would be responsible for maintenance and insurance. We've gotten some questions about the insurance. We talked this over with our insurance carrier. They were the ones that gave us the quote on what they think it would cost. And from their perspective, it's, if this is 90 some acres here, it's becoming 90 plus 35 acres from their perspective. It's just more school district property in a district that already has 20 campuses. What is the timing for the improvements to the property? So doing school construction is neither fast nor easy. And we've been doing, obviously, a lot of school construction, and it's a tremendous amount of work, particularly for the two people on either side of me, Dr. Rufo, who is our school district business official, and Mr. Hamilton, who is our director of operations. These are conceptual drawings. Once the conceptual drawing, should the voters approve this, and then should the county approve it, and then there's a bill that would go through the state legislature, so 3 steps. But if all of those things occur, then we would start the process of doing actual design work. I think that would probably take on the order of 6 months. Then everything that gets built in a school district has to first be approved by the state of New York. The state's had a number of budget cutbacks, so right now it takes about 42 weeks for a project that requires engineering approval to be approved by the state. So I just add a year to everything. And then once we get state approval in the form of a building permit, then we go out to bid. And a year and a half from now, we see what the bids come in. And if the bids are favorable, the board awards the bids. If the bids are not favorable, the board rejects the bids and we rebid. So hopefully we would be looking at construction in the summer of 23. It's possible to shave some time off of that process, but I would hate to imply that it can be done with a certainty. I think it's going to take at least 2 years to get there, and that's kind of typical in the school district construction world. We do have some advantages, potential advantages, in so much as when construction's done on a school campus, you really work hard to try and do it all during the summer months. That means that there's a lot of competition for contractors during the summer months, and competition demand means price goes up. If we're able to do some of the work in really unappealing months like January, February, early March, the contractors might not be as busy. It might be possible to get more favorable pricing. Again, impossible to predict, but just something that we're thinking about. Can juniors still park at Stillwell? I think the answer is not only could they still park at Stillwell, but our idea would be to have surveillance cameras there, as we do have in the parking lots on all of our campuses, and to have a security guard there as well to try and increase the safety of that place where we do have lots of kids parking during the regular day. So how does this work? There will be 2 propositions on the May 18th ballot. So, the first proposition is the school district budget. The second proposition is the conveyance of the land for the price of $1. And the third proposition is the investment of the resources to improve the property. So both propositions 2 and 3 must pass in order for this to pass the school district. So if one passes and the other doesn't, it doesn't move forward. And then the fourth proposition, I should just say, is the library budget. That's also on the same ballot. So I'll open it up to comments or questions. We use the same format here that the board uses during the school board meetings. What we ask is that when you come up to the microphone, if you'd please state your name so that we can take some good notes. You'll have 4 minutes to address us as part of this administrative hearing. And then when your 4-minute turn is over, I'll ask the next person who would like to speak to come up and have a turn as well. Then when everyone has had one turn at the microphone and there's no one else who wants to speak, I'll go through my notes. I'll try to address the questions that have come up as best I can. And then if anyone wants a follow-up opportunity, we'll give you 4 minutes of follow-up. And then I'll repeat after everyone's had their 4-minute follow-up. I'll again respond to any of the questions that have come up with assistance from the folks on either side here who have some detailed knowledge that I lack. And then we'll conclude the night, and we'll all go home to our families. So that's the plan. So whoever would like to speak, the microphone's yours.
Good evening. My name is David Sprintson. I live on Southwoods Road, right down the road. And I want to speak not about the entire project, but about one specific aspect of it, which is a matter of great concern to myself and to all of the neighbors with whom we've spoken. And that has to do with the proposal to have a band shell and a performance space. And that is, I must say, something which we find profoundly upsetting, and it seems to me out of character from what is, I think, the fundamental rationale of the project. So we're not talking about the question of the different fields or facilities, all those questions. There is obviously a tremendous problem with parking. We know that. I won't go into details about it. It seems quite appropriate, given the location of where that space is for the band shell, that can just be removed and be turned into additional parking. You'll do very well. That would be very helpful. And it's right on the road, so it seems that it would be no problem for you. But the notion of bringing a band shell there, whether it was intended to have amplified sound built in or whether it was not, the very fact of creating it is an inducement. You build it, they will come. It will happen. All right? Whether it's your particular plan or the plan of future administrations or the people who come to perform in the park or play in the park or use the park. Park is there for athletics. The park is there for the kids to have a good time in competition. And the park is there. Improvements are meant to address the issue of parking and to deal with the problem of traffic and to deal with the problem of the facilities. All of that makes reasonable sense. It has its problems. I'm really not speaking to that issue. But the notion of a band shell and performance space has no place there. It is totally unacceptable to everybody that we have spoken to in the community, and I think it must be removed and very easily can be turned into additional parking. You can certainly use it, and that would be quite satisfactory as far as I'm concerned. Okay, thank you.
My name is Emmanuel Jenkins, and I live across the street. My property is contiguous to the school property and Stillwell. I have some concerns, the same concerns that Dr. Sprintson had about the band shell. We have an auditorium over there, and we've always had performances there. I've been here for 47 years. All of my 4 children graduated from, attended the school system, and I haven't had one here since 1980, so I'm still here. I'm retired for 26 years. And I have some questions regarding the hydrology problems with the property, the soil across the street. The town sent construction workers over there for days working on that, on the drive going back, and they still didn't get it straight. I think the hydrology problems with a walking path, you're talking about $375,000 or $395,000 for that. I find that's low. I also think your estimate for insurance is is not possible. $7,000, I think, would not cover anywhere near what the insurance requirements would be. So those are my main concerns. I think we have enough facilities here to entertain students as far as having performances. We have enough facilities here to do that.
Hi, my name is David Lieberman, and I'm from Syosset. And well, I've been playing baseball on Stillwell for so many years, and I remember when I used to play on Science Woodbury Park, how I thought that it was such like a nice field and stuff, and it was really fun to play on. But when I got to Stillwell, I immediately saw that there was a problem with the parking and how it was like really hard to get in. And when I played on the fields, it was hard to play as like a whole. And first, the dirt on the fields it's really hard. It's like cement. I've scraped my knee and ripped a lot of pants on the field. I think I also have seen that like the hops and the baseball on the field, on the dirt, I've seen kids get hit in the face, and it's not good. It must hurt. It hurts. And I believe renovating these fields will not just better the kids playing, but safety for the kids playing. And I know that not just baseball, but soccer and even flag football, it would help them out. And all the future generations playing on these fields as well. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Catherine Attry, and I live across the street from the high school tennis courts. I am directly next to that driveway, that horrific parking situation and everything. Few comments that I have for what's going on right now. The buses are constantly running all the time. They do not shut off. And I think that I've called the school district a number of times about that. But 1139 specifically keeps going. One of the other things that if you're going to do a situation like this, we really need to have a stoplight where that crosswalk is. People run across, drivers just keep going and going. I mean, everybody is trying to get across safely. And that if you're going to improve all of this field, which I agree needs to be improved, especially the parking situation, the way people go back and forth, there needs to be like bumps in the road so people can slow down. They are going 30 miles an hour going down because they're late for their kids without taking into consideration what other kids they could be mowing down. So that to me is really important, to have a stoplight there, to have bumps and speed bumps in the road. Putting together this fabulous field is a great idea, but I am totally against the bandstand because I am adjacent to exactly where that bandstand would be placed. And I get all the noise of the field as it is, which I love listening to the kids yelling and screaming and having a good time. I do not want to hear the sounds of whatever there is until 10 o'clock at night. And I am directly impacted by the people parking on my sprinklers on Stillwell, on Southwoods Road. And I object to that also. So I do need to have more signs put up because that costs me a lot of money to change sprinkler heads all the time. So that's what I have to say. But otherwise, I think it's a great idea. The kids should have this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, my name is Noah Flax, and I'm a fifth grader at Robbins Lane. I've been playing baseball in SBA since I was 4 years old. I'm a member of the 10U Braves Red Travel Team and play on an intramural team too. I'm here tonight to tell you how important the project at Stillwell is, not just for myself, but all the baseball kids of this community. After this year, all my games will have to be at Stillwell because in sixth grade, we need to play on larger fields. After playing most of my games in the past years at Syosset Woodbury Park, this change is a downgrade and not for the better. No more home runs over the fence for me and a teammate in the stands over here. The general conditions are horrible. All the games will have to be completed before dusk. No more games under the lights, which we all love. Every day after school, the fifth grade kids meet up at SWP and watch the AAA games going on. It's so much fun to watch and be a player. This doesn't happen at Stillwell. My grandparents won't be able to come and see me play at my home field, but only at away games because the parking and walking to these fields is too hard for them. There's no bathrooms for anyone to use other than the woods. It's horrible. We don't even have a porta potty. The parking situation is stressful for us because our parents have to drop us off and there's never anywhere for them to park. Sometimes it takes 20 minutes just to get to the back of the park where the baseball fields are. When we have to walk to the fields, passing dead animals through overgrown grass, it is scary for me to think about if anyone ever gets hurt. There will be no way for an emergency vehicle or person to get onto the fields to help us. People just park anywhere they can. I will never forget when my mom told me that Josh got $3 million for the SBA to start rebuilding the fields at Stillwell. I wanted to go to the celebration dinner and think of myself. It made me so happy that we will have fields like all the other towns I play at. I used to always ask my mom, what's going on with Stillwell? When is the work going to start? She couldn't give me an answer, just that we need more money to really make it happen. Then COVID happened and now we are here. This started as an SBA vision with Josh. I hope you understand how important the new baseball facility is for the youth of our town. There are over 1,100 boys and girls that are counting on this project to happen. When is the last time you drove around and saw any of the fields we play on? We need this more than just turf, infields, and lights. We need parking, walking, paths, maintenance, bathrooms, running water. I invite you all to spend a weekend at Stillwell. It needs help. Thank you.
That will be a tough act to follow.
Hi, my name is Randy Flax. I'll follow my son Noah. I am a Syosset alumni. I raised my family here. I am a past Syosset soccer player, varsity soccer player for the high school. I also played Syosset softball through SIAC and through the high school varsity as well. The most important thing that I want to say is that we really have this one chance to do this the right way, and it's so important that we do it the right way. So the feedback from all the sports facilities, the sports organizations, is really important for us to be heard, for you guys to hear us, what we need, what our kids need, what our future kids need, lights, walkways, bathrooms, parking, scoreboards, bathrooms. It's really important to our children and the future of our community. So I think we get this one shot. Let's do it right for everybody at hand. And that's really just what I wanted to say. Thank you.
My name is Matthew Flax. I'll follow the rest of my clan. I think a very important thing that we need to think about is maybe some kind of a pedestrian bridge going over Southwoods Road. I know it'll add a little bit of money to the project, but it's a great way to keep everybody safe and secure on the commute back and forth. The other thing that I'm going to tell you guys is I saw that plan that you put up there. I agree the band shell needs to go. If we need a band shell somewhere, trust me, between the town, the county, and the school district, we will all figure it out. As far as that plan that you guys put up there for the fields, come to us, the community, the people that are going to be playing on these fields. That layout doesn't work. You have a huge swath of land, and you can make it better than that. There is no pathway on that to get to the baseball fields. A glorified porta potty that you want to put in there for the winter months, inappropriate. There needs to be a bathroom there. It is time that Stillwell has what it should deserve and what this community deserves. I have lived here for 45 years. I played on those fields, and they were in the exact same condition that they are now. It is disgusting. It's inappropriate. And it's time that Syosset join the real world of athletics and get a field that competes with everyone else. We are a laughingstock to everyone that comes here. We were blue ribbon schools. We want to be the best of the best. It's time to act like the best of the best. It's time to get a real field out there, and that layout out there, we can help you guys make that better. Should be a centralized location in the middle of the baseball fields for food, for bathrooms. What if you have a parent that has 2 children and they want to be able to watch both their children at the same time and they can't? Well, a centralized location with fields protruding out from them, that would help. Let's do this right. Come to the community, come to the SBA, go to soccer. We'll all make this right. But don't trust your architects to make this right. That plan up there can be changed, and we can help make it better. Thank you.
Hi, Alice Sprintson. I'm a 50-year resident of Syosset. My son went to the wonderful high school and the elementary school, and have been a supporter in every election. I live across from the soccer field, and the thought of having any kind of amplified sound, either at the band shell, which will have amplified sound if it's there, because there's no sense in having a band shell without some kind of amplified sound. Or the idea of having anyone who contracts to use the place, that third category that you mentioned, I think in the contract should be no amplified sound. As it is, we hear, I have 2 buses that park in front of my house every day. I can hardly get out. In fact, it's totally unsafe. There used to be, when we moved here, there was, the whole thing was a farmland. I used to go across the street and buy my vegetables there. I have not objected. I was a high school teacher for 33 years. I love to hear children having fun, but I do not want to have to go inside my house, turn on my air conditioner so I can't hear the sound, and not be able to use my own backyard because of amplified sound. And we hear a lot already, and it's children playing. That's fine with me. I hear the football games. Okay, it's not that often, and it's children playing, having fun. Fine, but amplified sound is not acceptable. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is Steve Cohen. This is my son Noah Cohen. I'm the intramural director for Syosset Baseball. Just wanted to say thank you for this opportunity to speak in front of you. We're grateful for your commitment to our school district. Dr. Rogers, thank you so much. We wanted to just have a moment to talk, to let you know how much we love our community. My wife and I, we both work 60 to 70 hours a week to be able to live in this wonderful community. We, kill ourselves so we can give our son this blue ribbon education that we're so proud to be in. But we also feel that athletics are just as enriching as academics, and we would love the opportunity to continue to foster our community through athletics, through baseball. It's a passion of ours. There's a lot of our members here tonight with our sons here speaking passionately on behalf of our athletic program, which we're very proud of. We have over 800 kids that we support, and we just want to give them the best facilities that they can be on. A safe and sound, secure facility with all of the accessories that we need. Bathrooms, especially a safe walking distance across to the school, back and forth into our Stillwell fields, and that's it. That's really, and like we have one shot. Let's get it right the first time. And again, thank you for your time. And my son just wanted to say a couple of words.
Hello, my name is Noah Cohen. I play for the Syosset Braves. I am 7 years old. I hope you build our field of dreams. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tyler Roth. I play for the 10U Braves Red. I don't know. My friend Noah, he already spoke. Adding to what he said, the grass when I play is up to my heels. And a couple times when my team had to cut practice short because it was too dark. We need lights that, like at Syosset Woodbury, that's how we play. We don't have enough fields at Syosset Woodbury, so we need to play on the field with lights. If we make Stillwell with lights, then we could play more games there and have expanded teams play. And when there's a bunch of animals in the road, and when we're driving, there's people coming out of the trails walking, and they need to stay like at the trees, so they don't. We need to expand the width of the parking lot. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Matt Silver, Syosset alum, class of '92, Woodbury resident today. Both my boys, one's in HBT and the other one's in Willits. I'm sorry, I went to Willits, at Whitman. Couple quick questions. This is my third meeting that I've attended. Can we talk about the insurance for a minute? My question is, there's a lot of posts on various social media in regards to what would happen to somebody who's, let's say it's not a school event, it's not a soccer, baseball, lacrosse event, and it's just kids playing on the field. Someone gets hurt. Whose liability is that? That's my question number one. Question number two, like we have lots of fields where kids play. Have there been other issues with liability where kids playing where they get hurt on a school property, where not with the school team, not with a Syosset soccer, baseball, lacrosse, but just kids being kids playing? Is that a liability to the school district on any field? My next question is the layout of the fields. Well, I can't wait for this to get done. From a baseball perspective, my question is, has anyone consulted with Tom Merritt, who runs the baseball program at Syosset? Since the school district's going to be owning it, it only would make sense to me for it to be able for the fields to benefit the school district. And the current layout really is more like a Band-Aid and a temporary fix than a permanent solution. So I would ask that the board please communicate with Tom Merritt, with Drew Cronin, with the board of Syosset Baseball, because I think what we have is a Band-Aid and a temporary fix. And we only have, as some of the kids said, I mean, we only have one shot. And if we don't get it right, I mean, this is it. And unfortunately, a couple years ago, when the $3 million was secured by Josh, I mean, to expand the road, to fix parking, and to update the baseball fields, I mean, this wasn't the vision of what we anticipated. And all I'm asking is for communication between the school district, the baseball people who work for the school district, and the people who are going to use the fields. Okay, thank you.
My name is David Locker. I stand here as a graduate of Syosset High School, a longtime resident of the district, a parent of a current student, one former student of the district, and the president of the Syosset Soccer Club. The Syosset Soccer Club is a not-for-profit, community-based youth organization whose mission is to provide children of all ages and abilities an opportunity to play soccer. Over 90% of our membership resides within the Syosset School District. We are a sport that runs year-round, 7 days a week, that is co-ed, that offers intramural and travel level of play for children ages 3 to 18 years old. In addition, we run a program through U.S. Youth Soccer called Top Soccer, which is for athletes with intellectual, emotional, and/or physical disabilities. The soccer club has spent money through the years to make enhancements to Stillwell, the bathrooms, the clubhouse, field maintenance being the most recent items. While Stillwell is our home and we care for it as such, we do not have the money or the control of the property to provide the enhancements that are necessary. The town has been extremely helpful to our club, but there is a limit to what can be done under the current operating arrangement. Items like turf fields, permanent lighting, improved parking, safety lights for the parking area, additional security, road repairs are all important for the children within the district who utilize these fields. While I've heard support from people regarding this project, I have also heard some concerns. The two biggest areas of concern seem to be around taxes and outside use of the facility. When this project was announced, a concern was raised about the district's ongoing cost to maintain the property. The club held a vote to allocate up to $50,000 per year to help offset the yearly maintenance cost incurred by the district. Our hope is that this is a reduction to the ongoing maintenance will help alleviate concerns regarding the financial cost on the taxpayers moving forward. This project has been described at every meeting as a project that will not raise taxes. Another area of concern seems to be on usage. Our understanding is that the fields will still require a use permit and the school district will be allocating those permits. Currently, Stillwell fields are by permit use only and can be used by any organization that asks for the permits. I would much rather the school district control these fields and who has use permits than the town or the county. I want to reiterate the point that the county is giving a 35-acre parcel of land that is across the street from our high school and one of our middle schools to the district for $1. Our existing campuses are landlocked, and further expansion to this district would be problematic. For those who question why we do not fix the fields that exist at the other schools in the district, having a turf field situated on 1 or 2 or 3 of the elementary schools would not help the district's team and the community as much as one centralized complex would. Additionally, to build at one place would financially benefit the district from an economies of scale. I have heard others say that the county or the town should control the property and not the district. The Syosset School District have the students and the residents' best interests more than any other entity would. If the county wants to rid themselves of this property, if not the Syosset School District, who else might develop this parcel and manage it? There are a lot worse things that can be across the street from our schools than a park. Facilities like the newly designed Stillwell project have been shown to increase home values in other towns where similar projects have been funded. Having a top facility is an integral part of having a top school district. Lastly, I want to talk about the transparency of elected officials. Even though I'm the president of the Syosset Soccer Club, I had no advance notice of this project and the negotiations the town, county, and district were involved in. I found out about this project the night it was publicly announced at a board meeting. This is the role of local government and elected officials. I trust the process and the individuals elected and appointed to act in our best interest and negotiate accordingly. When Legislator Lafazan worked to secure the initial $3 million for Stillwell, it was thought by the local sports leagues to not be enough money to truly recognize what Stillwell should be. The additional funding and the school board involvement will take Stillwell from a ball field to a complete complex that can be used by more students and for more activities, again, with no increases in taxes. As the president of the Syosset Soccer Club, I want to thank the school board and Dr. Rogers for listening to our concerns and our needs for the space, and for Legislator Lafazan for putting the condition of Stillwell fields on the county radar. Our partnership with the district is one that has always been valued, and we look forward to continuing and growing this partnership for the benefit of the Syosset community. I have questions, but I think my 4 minutes are up.
Your 4 minutes are up, I'm afraid, but you'll have another opportunity after everyone's had their first opportunity. Okay, I'm going to declare round one done. Of course.
My name is Ron Gans. I have read on the Syosset School District website that this attempted takeover of Stillwell Woods Preserve by the Syosset schools will have an effect on our taxes of approximately $23 per 10,000 paid in taxes. And this might be true, but very misleading. From what I have learned, the true cost to the Syosset School District resident is what the district is actually spending in real dollars. First, I would like to mention the two $1 million payments that were made to the school district, which totaled $2 million. To be more specific, the developers of 80 Jericho and the Sagamore project. These payments are made to the school district to help mitigate the expense of new students entering the district. It is very concerning to me that the district has decided to divert these funds to these non-education projects. And then the district is willing to take a bond debt of $3.5 million in addition to the $2 million, bringing the total starting amount to start at $5.5 million. Isn't the true cost to the Syosset resident what is spent? And if the Syosset School District were not to get involved in the operation of a sports complex, we might see our taxes either stabilize or possibly drop. I appreciate giving the children an opportunity to participate in sports and other activities, and presently, as well in the future, our children will have these activities available at the Stillwell Woods sports fields. But considering the creation of this albatross of a project creates an absurd tax burden upon the shoulders of the taxpayers in the Syosset School District. And it is spending like this that will prevent our children from calling Syosset their home once they become adults. Today is May 4th. The planned vote is May 18th. The vote is 14 days away. Has anybody received anything in the mail related to this issue of the upcoming vote? I know that I have not. I also have my concerns regarding transparency. Unfortunately, the community at large knows nothing about this project, the vote, or the cost to the homeowner. And although this vote ensures nothing regarding the completion of this project, I myself is asking Superintendent Rogers to postpone the vote so as to properly inform our community and a proper vote be held. I'm also asking those who have concerns or would like to know more to contact Superintendent Rogers and ask him to postpone the vote. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jason Roth. I am lucky enough to be Tyler Roth's dad and Noah Flax's baseball coach. I coach the 10U Red Syosset Braves. I'd like to start by kind of answering what Mr. Gans just said regarding the money being reallocated to education. And if you look at those two boys, I think they learn a lot from being involved in a sport like baseball, being on a team with each other. One came up and gave his teammate a shout out for a home run. I mean, that is things learned through teamwork and sports. The other thing, I won't bug everyone with all the baseball talk that we gave, but we have some teams that fight over fields to get practices in. We have children that play in this community and try to learn a sport like baseball. And in this community, coaches can't get enough fields to have practices. There's something very wrong with that. And we're proposing a plan that doesn't have lights for fields. All that's going to do is keep us limited. And there are going to be children in this community that can't get extra practices in, while adults who are all volunteers are willing to be there to teach them. And there's something really wrong with that. I'm not going to keep going. Everyone knows the parking situation. Everyone knows the safety concerns. You know, I look at a drawing like that, and there are towns like Comac and Hicksville that Garden City, who put up these amazing complexes. And I don't know why we try to reinvent the wheel. We see it functioning. And then we look at this, and there's, you know, scattered fields all over. You know, what Matt Flax brought up about parents wanted to see two kids. I have two kids play. I have 3 children playing. 1 daughter, 2 sons. I'm hoping to see all 3 of them play and not have to pick and choose. And if we have one complex built the way Comac or Hicksville, these towns are, it makes it easy on all of us. I just think that, you know, like I said, why reinvent the wheel? These drawings are there. These plans were done. You know, maybe we have to reshape them a little to fit Stillwell, but, you know, there are reasons why these are structured the way they are, and I think we should take a look at those, maybe ask some of those towns for feedback in some of their community. And I mean, the Syosset Baseball High School coach, organizations, volunteer organizations like Syosset Soccer, Syosset Baseball, we should all be involved in the conversation. We've all been, you know, pushing to help in any way we can. And, you know, we're out there, coaches and parents, all volunteers, 6 a.m. Stillwell, Saturday mornings, getting the fields ready for the games. And we're all about these kids. And to not include us in what the plans are going to be going forward, in my opinion, is a mistake. Thank you.
Okay, last chance for round 1. Going once.
Good evening. Sorry. My name is Mark Nathan, and to be clear, I'm not against sports or anything like that. I've been trying to say that. And I am concerned about the costs. I mean, we have taxes and so on down the line. I know of people paying $40,000, $70,000 a year in taxes already. So there's a concern. And I'm not sure about these numbers that were supplied to me by somebody else. But from what I'm being told, that behind Syosset High School, there's 3 boys lacrosse fields, 2 girls lacrosse fields, a baseball field, 2 softball fields. The side of the high school has some turf field, I'm not sure of, along with 2 baseball diamonds. What are we doing with that? Are we using it? And apparently, what I'm consistently hearing from people that are playing ball, from what I expressed the last time in my meeting here, we're not taking care of the fields. And if we don't take care of the synthetic turf properly from the get-go, its life expectancy is going to drop tremendously. And whoever's taking care of the fields, as I said the last time, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, we're not doing a good job of it. Okay, so as much as I'm saying the kids should be playing on fields, my son, when he was at Syosset High School, played baseball, okay? My other son was a swimmer, so it doesn't count. He just fooled around in the water. But basically what it comes down to, these are some of our concerns. What are we doing with the fields that we already have? They're going to disappear? Why aren't they well maintained? Why can't we play on them? These are the questions I have as a taxpayer and concern. And I think baseball players here should also be concerned with that. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to close round 1 and start doing some responses to some of these questions and comments. I'm probably not going to respond to comments. The purpose of this is to hear the public, and we are certainly hearing you, and I am writing furiously, and of course these presentations are being archived so we can go back through it. I'll try to respond to some of the questions that were asked. We did get some questions online. I'll try to go through some of those as well. I'm going to turn to my right and my left to ask for some specific help with things. So to the folks who had comments about noise and amplified sound, we're certainly hearing your comments. I will say, as I've said at previous meetings, I don't think that this is Jones Beach. I think that this is the kinds of things that are already occurring on the campus, but a nicer way to do them, because the lawn is a nicer way to sit there and to try and make sure that this, our vision was to make this something that would be of use to kids who are in the arts as much as kids who are in athletics. But I certainly take your point. To the question about the hydrology of the property, as I mentioned earlier, we did have a contingency in there for unexpected discoveries, so that's the kind of thing that we would be worried about. But the flip side is, in talking with, I did walk the property with our architects and engineers. They did a visual inspection of the property, and they feel confident in their estimates. I'm going to turn to my left, and several people brought up the question of insurance and liability. All of that rests with Dr. Rufo's office, so I'm going to let her talk a little bit about how the cost estimates were arrived at, and also how the liability works.
We consulted with NYSER. That's an acronym for New York State Insurance Reciprocal, and they work with many districts on Long Island and across the state. And in coming to a determination on how much additional insurance, they took a look at what the proposed use of the property would be and the proposed expense, and that's how they came up with that. And keep in mind, that is the incremental difference that they determined on our property insurance. So one of the ways people brought up liability, and one of the ways the district mitigates its risk, and insurance is to require groups to have their own insurance and to list Syosset as an additional insured. So it's really just called risk transfer or risk management. So the district is responsible and has liability on all of its properties. And so when we look at overall the increase, and people are saying it's not as much as they thought it would be, part of that relates to the fact that the district has liability insurance already for all of its property and its fields. So this is considered similar use as the rest of the district operations. And then we have that risk transfer to help mitigate risks that must be shared with all people who are using the fields. And I think that was the general questions that we had regarding insurance. I think I covered them.
Thank you very much for that. I'll just say the comments about the school district busing and some concerns with that, that's also Dr. Rufo's department. I'm guessing that she made notes about the concerns. Yep. So we don't want buses idling for obvious reasons. So if that's an issue, we want to address it. We don't want buses parking in front of people's driveways. We are trying to attempt to be good neighbors, and that's certainly the point of this meeting tonight. And so if there is something like that where our operations become a nuisance inadvertently, we would want to know, because we'd want to address it rather than have it continue. To young Mr. Lieberman, I would say you raised a point that I neglected, which is the safety of having these fields with a more consistent playing surface. That's something that has come up in previous meetings. The comment about stoplight or speed bumps where the crosswalk is between Stillwell and the high school right now. I couldn't agree more. That's something that we would have to work out with the county. The school district doesn't have the authority to make changes to Southwoods Road. So we would certainly approach the county. We've talked with Legislator Lafazan about That concerns generally on South Woods Road in terms of the speed of vehicles as they go through school zones. We would like to see the road calmed, and whatever features can do some traffic calming there, I think would be wise. And even before this was contemplated, there's certainly a lot of foot traffic from juniors who park across the street. Our cross-country teams leave this campus and go run in the woods at Stillwell after school almost every day. So there is a lot of traffic back and forth. And to young Mr. Flax, I'm sorry that Stillwell seems like a downgrade to you. You also raised a point about emergency vehicles that has been in my previous presentations, but I neglected to mention this evening. One of the advantage to some of the paved pathways that we're contemplating is that it will make rescue and extraction of athletes who become injured or an older person who might have some need of immediate assistance. Having those smooth pathways into the property makes it easier for the rescue to occur, and that's one of the thoughts in terms of how we laid them out. A number of people made points about asking for feedback from baseball, feedback from soccer, feedback from the groups that are involved. Certainly that's what these public meetings have been, is opportunities to take feedback. We appreciate that. Yes, we've been in contact with our own athletics staff and trying to take feedback from them. I certainly consider them to have expertise that we need to take advantage of. Those conversations will, of course, be ongoing, and their reactions and ideas are important to us. I take, Ms. Sprintson, your suggestion about having riders on use permits, about sound. That's something that we'll take back and look at and talk to our attorneys about. I think the line of the night is going to probably be Noah Cohen's line of the night. I think Dr. Rufo addressed the insurance questions that were asked. Mr. Locker, I think yours was more statement than question. So, Mr. Gantz, I understand your point of view and your perspective. I think what we've tried to do is explain that the district is rolling off one debt, replacing that with another debt. We've tried to illustrate what the magnitude of that would be on an individual basis. So that's the same calculation that we did when we had the Phase 2 bond vote for the school district 4 years ago. So we're trying to be consistent in how we try to explain these things. In terms of the payments from the developers, if those payments were pledged towards one-time operating expenses, they'd be here and then gone. So because they are one-time payments, typically what we try to do is use one-time payments to make one-time investments. And the idea that we could use this investment to create something that would be a lasting benefit to kids sort of presented itself as a logical place to consider. In terms of something being in the mail, there is a mailer. Ms. Williams has some copies here if you would like to see it. It was delayed because we had a candidate drop out of the school board election, so we had to stop it at the printer and then redesign it and then resend it to the printer. But it went to the post office, I believe, today, and so it should be in mailboxes shortly. And then, I take the point that one parent made about renovating multiple fields on multiple campuses. That would probably be not only inefficient for not having all of the groups be able to be together, but it would probably be inefficient for the school district to maintain as well. And then to the point about the maintenance of our existing fields, I'm going to let Mr. Hamilton address that for a second, and then I'll have a concluding thought.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Rogers. Regarding the maintenance of our fields, the district does employ a grounds crew we have about 4 or 5 that are assigned to the high school and the Southwoods Middle School campus. And they do things like they maintain the fields, they do, lining of the fields for athletic events, mowing, they do field preparation. The turf field is fairly new, so we've been this year working with an outside contractor to perform preventive maintenance on the turf fields. And that's typically what the maintenance staff, I should say the grounds crew, staff take care of for the fields. I have not heard of any poor conditions on our fields. If someone has anything that they'd like to make me aware of, I'm open. I'm receptive to hearing of that. And that's pretty much the way that our team works. We have some that are assigned to this campus, and then we have the others that are assigned to the other 8 schools within the campus. And the grounds crew supports athletics Monday through Friday as well as the weekend.
And so just some concluding thoughts on that. While it would appear that there are a lot of fields here, what beats up the fields is when they're being used constantly. And so the fields here are used constantly, and the athletics department is doing a lot of work trying to rotate the sports around. Also, the fields back here, the outfield for the JV baseball impacts the lacrosse fields, so they can't be used simultaneously, or a kid playing lacrosse is going to get smacked with the ball that comes into the outfield. Same thing with the JV softball field, that impacts the middle school fields. So there's a lot of shuffling that goes on, and as we've said at previous meetings, the advantage to having turf fields is that they can be played on almost incessantly without beating them up, and certainly do need to be maintained to keep them in good working order. But it will reduce and make the grass fields, it takes a lot of pressure off the grass fields so that the remaining uses that are happening with the grass fields are in better shape. So I think that concludes the responses. We'll do another round of 4 minutes a person, and then I'm sorry, I wanted to read some of the questions that came in online. So HPT doesn't have a track or a walking path. Could we create this at HPT? The advantage of creating it here is we would use the pathway to bury conduit. That's how we would get the lighting and the electricity around and the surveillance cameras around the property. So that's why it makes sense to do it here. Why do we need Stillwell if we have the fields behind the school? I just responded to that. Spending money for sports and educational uses at individual schools, we addressed that earlier. Residents are not aware that Walt Whitman has a significant amount of property that's not being used. That's true. Walt Whitman is about 20 acres, but the space behind the school, first of all, is inaccessible because the school's in the way, and second of all, it's very hilly terrain, so it would be very difficult to develop that. Can the community make suggestions regarding amenities? Absolutely. That's the point of these meetings. What do we pay for upkeep? That was addressed with the annual cost. Is there a possibility of building an indoor track? Separate issue, but we do have challenges in terms of the indoor space we have. We have 2 gyms at the high school. Neither one is colossal. So we have Jericho has half the kids and twice the gym space. That's one way of thinking about that. So would it be useful to have more indoor space? Yes. The additional parking spaces are not enough to address what's needed. It's a significant increase in parking, and the one thing we would hope to do is do not a better job, but if we were managing both properties, we would try to coordinate so that the parking at the tennis courts would better support Stillwell and take advantage of it. Has the district considered the liability from turf fields? We looked at this when we built the turf field out here. We did not identify any issues that were a concern. The EPA had said that they were going to update a study that they had done. That was several years ago. They've not released any studies that indicate any concerns. Obviously, we'll be attentive to that. Questions about wear and tear. As Mr. Hamilton's mentioned in previous meetings, his staff would do the maintenance. We think that we could do it more cost effectively. The one thing that we have to do every year is something called a GMAX test, and that is to make sure that there's enough springiness in the turf so that we avoid concussions. Turf fields are not usable in the summer months because of extreme temperatures. We do see use of the turf in summer months all over. That seems to be actually common. Has there been an analysis about costs to improve existing grass fields through better grading or better foundation? We did look at doing grading work when we did the turf field here and the 2 baseball fields that are adjacent to it. There's middle school baseball field and the varsity. And just the grading alone was on the order of $2 million or something like that, but just a fantastic number. So I wouldn't underestimate how challenging that is to do and would also require state education department approval. This is a very long question I'm trying to summarize. This is essentially someone wanting to understand how we arrived at the $43,000 in savings for the busing. So Dr. Rufo, if you could just address that, please.
Our transportation supervisor worked with the athletic director to identify those routes, those athletic trips and they used the 18-19 school year because that was the last full school year we had. And so they identified those trips that went to locations like Cantiac Park, Syosset, Woodbury, and some other locations that we would not have to transport to if we had Stillwell fields. So that's how they came to that determination.
Okay, just a handful left. The original allocation of this is more a comment than a question. The original allocation was to pave parking areas and access leading to the trailheads and maintain the restroom. This is ballooned in a way that's unnecessary. New families are drawn to the community because of the education the schools provide. I don't believe the fields will enhance our educational standing or draw families to the community. What are the current zoning requirements for the property? What happens if the sale doesn't go through? So the conditions that the county put on the agreement with us were that the property has to remain as recreational property. Now, I don't know what the county would negotiate. I certainly can't speak on behalf of the county. I don't know what they would negotiate if another purchaser came along, and whether it would be a better deal or a worse deal or no deal at all. So I wouldn't want to speculate. I just know that they were these were the conditions that they gave us for the purchase of the property. Does the board believe it's a conflict of interest to have a candidate for the school board also have an interest in the Stillwell property as a member of the Syosset Baseball Association? So I can't speak for the board. The question is addressed to the board. What I will say is there are a series of jobs that are enumerated in statute that a school board member cannot simultaneously hold. And I'm going to invent a job because I don't know the list off the top of my head. So I'm going to say dog catcher. You can't be dog catcher and be on the school board. But those jobs are all lined out in law. I know of no prohibition that says you can't be in a capacity in a local association. Why wasn't the community informed of this deal prior to the announcement? So we were not at liberty to discuss matters concerning property until the agreements are finalized. So as soon as this agreement was finalized, it was disclosed to the community. The board's role is to negotiate an agreement. The community's role is to decide whether to move forward with it. So the agreement negotiation process has ended, and the public decision process has begun, and That's where we're at right now, trying to communicate with the public, trying to inform people about it, and take feedback from the community as we move forward. So with that, anybody who'd like a second chance at the microphone is more than welcome.
Hey guys, just going back to that liability question. So if a bunch of kids go play two-hand touch on the turf after school on their own and someone gets hurt, who's liable? And my other question is, would you guys consider hosting one more meeting after everyone gets the mailers? Because I think there's a lot of people in the community who might benefit. I think a lot of people would benefit from that. So just something for you to consider. And lastly, I appreciate that you are communicating with the athletic people at the high school for the fields, because I think that would make the fields useful for all sports, not just one or two. So thank you.
Couple of questions. One concern we've had through the years are the in the parking lots. I guess the existing parking lot and maybe the new one you're looking to design is some kind of safety lights in those parking lots. Because we were back and forth with the town. We put a spotlight up ourselves on the clubhouse that's motion detected, but all of our practices end under darkness, and we have children running into those parking lots. So having some lights that even if they turn off automatically at a certain time, but by like 9 o'clock would be helpful to have some kind of lights in those parking lots, because there are parents waiting for their kids to come out of practice and kids running in. One thing that was on my thing that I think Mr. Flax mentioned, which was maybe the feasibility of an overpass going from the high school property to Stillwell. I know that's probably more the county, but it seemed like if you have a place for students to walk back and forth, even the children who park during the day, at Stillwell would be helpful. I think I'm listening to all the baseball guys and I'm talking to my soccer guys, and if there is some type of committee that can be helpful in the ultimate design of the property, I'm sure every representative of, each sport would probably provide a representative. We'd be more than happy to give some feedback. I know you've already taken our feedback, so, but any further help we could be, I think all would be welcome to that. I guess my other question, there seems to be a little bit still confusion about the taxes to this property, and the $23 per $10,000. My understanding that is not a new tax, that is just the representation of what the tax levy existing coming off the books was, or the new tax levy would represent in the $10,000, that it's not an actual new tax. So just a question on that. And another thing, I've been to all these meetings and it seems like there's a lot of talk about community outreach. And I guess my question is there a place on the Syosset website for citizens of Syosset, residents of Syosset who do not have a child in the school to sign up for the mailings or newsletters or emails? Thank you.
I'm going to be speaking for the Syosset Baseball. The Board of Directors of the Syosset Baseball Association have approved a pledge by the SBA of $100,000 to support the renovation and maintenance of the fields at Stillwell Woods Park. The pledge has conditioned the approval of the acquisition of the park by the Syosset School District, which must be approved by voters on May 18th, and the satisfactory planning of turf fields, lighting, parking, and compensations in the baseball area of the park. The board will also consider annual maintenance payments following construction and consistent with other park stakeholders to ease the burden on the school district's taxpayers. This pledge continues to the community commitment of the SBA. Having donating $10,000 during the COVID-19 pandemic to the local food banks, the funds will be drawn from SBA fields maintenance and improvement funds, and the board is pleased to dedicate these funds to common goal of improving the player and spectator experience at Stillwell. Adding turf baseball fields at Stillwell will be reduced rainouts. It also might mitigate the cost of maintenance equipment, including old and dangerous vehicles, pallets of quick dry sand, field truck, other equipment, and paid maintenance companies. Adding lights will greatly increase field availability and allow more baseball games to be played in an exciting central hub rather than in remote parks across the town. By having multiple fields visible from a central hub, parents with children and multiple games can keep up with all the action. The SBA has a long history serving up with Syosset, Woodbury, and surrounding communities. The SBA recently joined Little League International and runs an intramural baseball program for the children of the abilities ages 3 to 17, with an enrollment of nearly 1,000 children. The SBA also runs a competitive travel baseball program with children at various skill rates competing with teams from all over Long Island and eastern U.S. As a part of the Little League, the SBA also fields teams for the Little League World Series tournament. In addition, the SBA enlists the help of approximately 30 middle and high school students as umpires, scorekeepers, and field maintenance crew. Teaching the values of commitment, leadership, and accountability, the SBA also awards 3 honorary scholarships to graduating seniors who have dedicated significant time to the SBA missions and its values. The SBA does not end at graduation. Many board members and coaches are SBA alumni. A major weakness of the SBA program, however, especially compared to other towns, is present condition of Stillwell Woods Park. SBA board stated Stillwell Woods Park is home to the majority of SBA games. The unmanaged partnership between Nassau County and the town of Oyster Bay has led to decrepit conditions, including no parking or horrific pothole-strained access roads. Absence of restroom and comfort facilities within walking distance to the baseball fields, and most importantly, with no on-site park staff. The inability for emergency vehicles to access the back of the park. In a given weekend, the park sees thousands of people attending baseball, soccer, lacrosse, flag football, and the bicycle trails that lead from the back of the park. Besides being completely inferior to baseball facilities in all neighboring towns, the inability to across medical attention in the back of the fields for players and spectators create a genuine life and death safety hazard. We look forward to working with the school district and our friends from the Syosset Soccer and other stakeholders to make Stillwell a facility in which our community can be proud, the board continued. The SBA encourages all residents to learn about the project and vote for acquisition. We look forward to counting to serve our community and hope this gesture is a token of our willingness to partner with the community to share some of the costs. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to declare the second round closed and respond to the handful of questions. I'll turn to Dr. Rufo again to go through the liability for 2 kids who, unbeknownst to us, come onto our campus and play catch or something, and one kid twists his knee.
I'll take another crack at the liability question. It is difficult. Let me say that the liability of an event happening at Stillwell is no different than if it would be happening on our anywhere else in our district when kids come and play. I can't determine liability, because that's determined in an action. So did the kid slip and fall because it was just happens when kids play together, or did the child slip and fall because there was a depression in the field that you could have presumably been aware of and not maintained? So it depends on the situation, and so I can't, in looking at hypothetical, make those determinations. So liability can be a failure to maintain. It could be, when we have playground equipment, if a child is injured on a piece of playground equipment, is that the district's fault if a child became injured, or is it the manufacturer? So these types of things are determined by the specifics of the incident. So I think what's important to know is that the district has insurance, and in cases where, in the case where two kids come on a field, again, that can't be determined without knowing the specifics, but it wouldn't be any different than any other piece of property. If they're students that are part of a group, we try to mitigate that risk by risk transfer and having that group have additional insurance that names Syosset as an additional insured.
I would just phrase it differently and to put a very fine point on it. This happens all the time. We have kids out here on the turf in the afternoon, ad hoc games of touch football, and they just ride here on their bicycles. And our insurance covers that. So it happens on the school district property. It's definitely the school district's issue. But that's what we're insured for. We're insured not just for the activities that are hosted and directed by the school district, but anything that just happens to happen on our property. And then your other 2 points, your suggestion and your comment, I take both. Thank you. In terms of the question about safety lights, we were contemplating, again, very low energy lights to try and make the property a little bit safer. I said we're minimizing the scatter from the lights that are on the fields, but we also think that there will be enough scatter from those lights that they will illuminate the parking lots to some degree as well. So hopefully that will make things safer at night for kids. Right now the parking lots are completely unilluminated. Take your point about the overpass on the road. As I mentioned earlier, anything that makes the road safer will make me happier. Your suggestion on committee, thank you for your suggestion. Confusion on the taxes, I'll let Dr. Rufo talk about the debt roll-off and the cost of the capital upgrades.
We have debt rolling off of approximately $1 million, and then we have our debt service, which is the interest and principal that we would have on this property, coming on for about approximately $500, and I'm rounding just to do the math make the math easier. So what's 500,000? What did I say? Thank you. 500,000. So it's a net decrease, just looking at those numbers, of 500,000. So the number of the $23 per 10,000 was derived as a number of, if you didn't do the project, that would be a savings, or because it's essentially half of what you're rolling off, it's the same number of the difference. Did I complicate it? Yes. So the tax levy amount was derived by looking at the percentage of that net difference over the tax levy, which is less than 0.25%, which works out to 23 per $10,000.
Right. So we do have a written explanation to this that's part of that FAQ document, and rather than make Dr. Rufo do this at 9 o'clock at night again, we're going to just direct people towards that. And then obviously there was a comment at the end, so thank you for that comment. And as I said, we're taking all of this feedback, certainly going to process all of this as a team. And you should be looking for the mailer in your mailbox in the next day or two So thank you everybody for coming out and spending so much time with us this evening. Get home safely. Thank you.